Hi, Dr. Rob Silverman here. I just filmed my third webcast, Proven Health Alternatives. Wow, Dr. Deanna Minich, blew the doors away. Wait till you see what we have talking about the food rainbow and what the colors mean, detoxification. She is an award-winning speaker. She's got a couple of books out. She is IFM trained. You're going to love what Dr. Minich has to share with you. Come watch. Hey everybody, Dr. Rob Silverman here with Proven Health Alternatives, and we have the dynamic, lovely Dr. Deanna Minich.
Hello, good to be here with you.
I'm happy you can make some time in your tremendously busy schedule.
Anything for you.
Oh,
And this is number 3 for you, the third webinar, or?
This is my third webcast,
Okay.
and it's going, and we appreciate you being on. And before I even read your bio, just what have you been up to, man? You're all over the place. You're a trendsetter.
Well, first of all, I'm a woman.
Correct me right away.
And,
in the corner. Steph, you may have to take that one.
So what have I been doing? I love diversity. I love to do a variety of different things. It just feeds me when I have variety. So I've been writing, I've been teaching. I teach a number of different courses. So I teach at the University of Western States. I teach a course in metabolic detoxification. I teach for the Institute for Functional Medicine. I've got that coming up. I just got back from a 3-week speaking tour in Europe. You and I were talking a little bit about travel before we signed on. So I was in England, I was in Ireland, and I was in Austria. And it was, it's just so fabulous. The more I travel, the more I realize all of us are so similar, and it's like we've got this big global community happening, and it feels so good to travel and to get perspective on one's life. So that's what I've been doing: traveling, speaking, writing, and enjoying life. I'm very grateful.
That's fabulous. I have this great bio for you, and I know you personally. We've worked on several projects together. You're a dynamic speaker. You also are an author. Your book is, and I read it, and it's fantastic. I recommend everybody to read it. It's called The Rainbow Diet: A Holistic Approach to Radiant Health Through Foods and Supplements. And you can get that online.
Yeah, you can get it online. You can get it on Amazon, wherever you choose to shop. Sure. Okay.
Outstanding. And you're a fellow of the American College of Nutrition. You're a certified nutritional specialist and a certified functional medicine practitioner. You hold a master's and a doctorate degree in nutrition. And as you said before, you've lectured throughout the world on various topics, teaching anywhere from patients to health professionals.
Yeah,
You're
just
at the
like
top
you.
of your game. And I get to speak a little for you. Your passion is bringing forth a colorful whole self approach to nourishment called the Whole Detox, and bridging the gaps between science, soul, and the art in medicine.
So I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite color?
My favorite, you're going to be surprised. It's bull red.
I don't know if I am surprised, actually.
It was being
Red is the color of action. It's if we look in the body, it's about the adrenals, it's fight or flight, it's survival, it's the tribal color, it's the color of blood when it's exposed to oxygen. And so it's it's really like, especially with you, you're so active, you're lively, you're vital. You speak that message of red. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, you got that type A right. So let me ask you, what's your favorite color?
Green. I love emerald green, and I've loved it for most of my life. And so I don't know. I love the forest. I love trees. I love nature. In fact, we live in a forest, a little forest, a 5-acre forest. We're surrounded by trees. And so that's what nourishes me is that color green. It's very healing.
Interesting. So what do you mean when you talk about color as medicine? I think we just got right in there.
I wanted to give an example of what I mean by that. Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed very early on was that there are patterns. And so functional medicine has its own set of patterns with the matrix. And then I also studied a lot of ancient traditions. So I took yoga when I was 19 and started to get turned on to different ways of thinking and philosophy, and started to learn about the chakra system, which essentially, if you look at these 7 main centers in the body, which were acknowledged by Eastern traditions, philosophy, and spirituality, they align with the endocrine system. So red, adrenals; orange, reproductive glands like ovaries and testes; yellow is digestive like pancreas; We've got green, which is the heart. The heart is actually a neuroendocrine gland, the thyroid, the pituitary, the pineal. And so to me, I just feel like the endocrine system is such an incredible interface for psychoneuroimmunology. It's like bringing together all the systems through that web. And so if you tickle one of those and you change something in the thyroid, you're going to change something throughout. So to me, it was a powerful system. And through that system, I connected in that the colors. And so this is the chart that I teach to health practitioners. I call it the 7 systems. I don't call them chakras because I flesh them out a bit more than just seeing them as energy centers. So to me, they're physiological centers, they're psychological connections there, and they're also food and lifestyle associations. So everything I have is a questionnaire, an assessment to figure out where people line up in terms of these 7 colors, these 7 systems. So are they overactive? Are they underactive? Where are they? And so when I say color is medicine, to me, color is medicine through our food, because we get food. Hopefully we're eating foods rich in phytonutrients, which change our cell signaling. Uh, Color on the outside changes our psychology. Why is a stop sign red? Why isn't it yellow? You know, there's a reason why colors are used for certain things in our environment. They're signaling something to us. So in one of my other books, Whole Detox, which is here, that came out in 2016, I went through the science of all the colors. And so I went through, every chapter has its own color. So red, I looked into the science of red. I looked into the science of orange. And so, you know, often within functional medicine, what we hear is food is medicine. But I think that we need a little bit more around that, like colorful food is medicine. Colorful plant-based food is medicine. So it's not the M&Ms and Skittles. It is the variety of different plant-based foods. And so, you know, I don't know if you know this about me either, but part of my healing journey involved me painting and helping to resolve a lot of my reproductive issues by letting go of my creative expression on a canvas. And I'm no trained painter, but I was drawn to color, and I started seeing people as color and started just tapping into the intensity of color and then letting that come through in a way that was very emotional and organic. So I would say I'm really into physical medicine like you, but then I'm also into the mental, emotional, spiritual sides, which quite honestly, each of those connects to the great big whole anyway. It's kind of like the endocrine system.
Interesting. So you mentioned something about phytonutrients. Um, how do phytonutrients change human gene expression?
How don't they? You know, I mean,
Mm.
everything we eat, if it's a plant-based food or even an animal product that has eaten plants, which inevitably they have, because everything that we take in is driven through that process of photosynthesis. So these phytonutrients, of which there are thousands, and we're talking like 5 to 10,000, and that's just the tippy top of the iceberg of the discovery on phytonutrients. These phytonutrients seem to play a role in many ways. In the 1990s, when I was in grad school, I learned about phytonutrients as antioxidants. In other words, they were protecting your body from going rancid, from decay, from aging. And I think in the 21st century, what we're now learning is that phytonutrients are more than just antioxidants. To me, antioxidant is such a 1990s word. We've
Mm.
now moved into bifunctional modulators of cellular signaling, whether we're changing inflammation, we're changing, perhaps there's a functional role. Like, for example, when we eat blueberries, there are compounds, the pigments that make those blueberries blue, that go into certain parts of the brain that are responsible for executive function. So our cognition is modified by this presence of color in the blueberry. And so it's doing something structurally by being there physically in the brain. And also, if you look at some of the studies on blueberries, helping to promote BDNF, which helps with neuronal growth. So, I mean, there's a lot of sophisticated science here, and I don't know how deep you want to get into the science, but you know, there's a lot underneath color, which is why I keep coming back to color is medicine, the color in foods. And that's why we have to eat the rainbow. You know, all different eating styles. It doesn't matter if you're paleo, you're keto, you're vegan. I don't care what name you have. Everything can be connected through color, because all of us at some point or another have to eat some kind of plants. It may not be the same plants, but we're eating color in some way.
You said BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factors, brain neurogenesis, but I don't want to get you off track on that. I want to keep you on colors because I'm illuminated and excited about this. How do you eat more phytonutrients? And you know what? I'm going to ask you two questions at the same time. How are different colors of foods connected to the benefits for the body? And then I'm going to break down. You're going to tell me everything you can about each color.
Okay, good. So, well, and we can even do that as we go through each one.
Love it.
Red, when I think of red, I think of the immune system. It's
Mm-hmm.
the alert. And what it does is red, if you think of inflammation, the rubor, color, and dolor, essentially what red foods do is they quell the red, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of like homeopathy. It's like the red foods are actually helping you to cool your body down. Orange colored foods are rich in carotenoids, which connect into the reproductive system. So there are some studies that indicate that, well, there was one that just came out in April of this year showing that women that ate more citrus fruits, i.e. things like oranges, that are high in a particular carotenoid called beta-cryptozanthin, had a 22% lower risk of endometriosis. And that's big. I mean, I had endometriosis. I had a number of reproductive things going on. If I would have known about colors like I know now, I think I would have, but I was eating brown, yellow, and white like most people. Lots of sugar, bread. My mom used to say, the whiter the bread, the quicker you're dead. And I think she's right.
Wow.
I mean, it's so true. The more we add in color and diversity and variety, the better. When I think of yellow, I think of the digestive system. I think of heat, acid, yellow foods that are acid forming in the body. I mean, look at the liver, the bile. It's a yellow substance. We want heat. We want the fire element in that part of the body. So some of those yellow foods can be instrumental for helping that to happen. And then we have green, which is connected to the cardiovascular system. Green foods, there are so many in nature, and that's a good thing. We must need it, and we do. What green foods do, the leafy greens, is they contain nitrates, which help to expand the blood vessels. We get relaxed when we eat greens. We should get relaxed, theoretically. Spoke about blue, purple, and the brain, and then I think of white. I do include white foods in there, but in a healthy sense. And usually when I think of white, I think of purification, clarification, detoxification. I think of fasting. I think of no food, the absence, the blank slate. So each of these colors, again, back to the seven, by the way, everybody can get this chart if they go to my website and they can just download this. I just make it available for everybody because I just want everybody to know about it. I mean, you don't even have to buy my books to know. I mean, this is a very complete, as you can see, a long system of if you have imbalances in a certain color and that color is connected into physiology and psychology, what could you do in terms of your food and your lifestyle?
So the colors most important to you. And I noticed you meant dieted, fasting. I got a lot to play with here.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah, you
someone said,
choose.
okay, so they say, Doc, is the keto diet better? Is the paleo diet better? Is the Mediterranean diet better? How would you answer that, or would you go back to the foods and their needs?
Well, first of all, this is the age of personalized nutrition. So I would say better than what and for whom. Like if we're talking about you in this moment, I want to know your ancestry. I want to know your environment. I want to know your food preferences. I want to know your food allergies. I want to know your sensitivities, your intolerances. I start putting together like a mental framework, a patchwork of you as a pattern. And through that lens, then I start to distill down into, well, these might be important features. I think we're done with, well, at least I'm done with analysis paralysis, where people are so tethered to calories and grams and like, oh my gosh, like, did I have too many carbohydrates? And I feel like that gets us into this, I don't know, we just start spinning and then it becomes more of a mental game and then we can't focus on the bigger things in life, like sense of purpose and meaning and having clarity with what we're here to do. So I usually do bring people back to some clarifying principles. Like I like the number 3, which is why I like that this is I'm number 3 in your lineup here. So 3 is the number of creativity. And when I think of 3, I think of color, creativity, and variety. So for most people coming to me, these are the principles I teach. Color, the phytonutrients. Let's just be sure you're even getting their colors. Like, let's just start there. Get your package of markers, write down your foods, and let's put a line through each of the foods that correspond to the color of that food. And let's just see what you're getting. And by the way, candy, cakes, things like that don't count. I only count the plant foods. I want to see what you're getting. So that's number one, color. In fact, I was even talking with one of my communities about creating a plate for kids, because I think that this starts really young. And we've got to get parents connected to kids on this. And so I was envisioning a plate divided into 7 sections for the 7 colors to help kids to say at their meal, like, wow, I'm missing orange. Maybe I should put a carrot here, or wow, I've got too much yellow and the yellow looks like corn chips. So I think I need to swap that out for something, and just have that dialogue. So color first and foremost. And I think that that's easy. It's artistic. It's fun. It gets you out of your head and into the aspect of play, which is much more right-brained and engaging with food. The next one is creativity. I don't know about you, Rob, but when I was growing up, I came from a very strict household where we didn't have a lot of play with food. And so it was always like no playing at the dinner table
Mm.
and, laughing, eating was serious business. And so one of the things I do is I actually go against that principle now with people because there's almost more stress about eating than anything else. Especially I see a lot of people that have been to multiple practitioners. They've whittled down what they can eat to like 5 foods, and they're like riddled with fear because they don't know what to eat and their body doesn't feel safe. So I want to take them out of that space with creativity, and creativity can manifest in many different ways, whether it's food preparation, how we think about our meal, what we're doing and thinking around that food. So I approach creativity in a very expansive way, not just your traditional way. And then the last one is variety, and I think you're going to like this because you like the microbiome. Our dietary diversity is really key for so many health conditions. And so there's literature to suggest that when we eat a greater variety of foods, that we're feeding a more diverse microbiome, which ultimately helps us for any number of things: immune status, body composition, mood, memory. I mean, you name it. Most things are so connected into the gut. So one of the things I did in my community, and I would encourage your listeners to do this, is you take a piece of paper, and I base this off of a scientific article by Miguel Toribio Mateus. And Miguel had put in his article the importance of the 50 foods per week. So 50 unique foods per week. You write them down. And so you write down if you have an apple, and it was a Granny Smith apple, and then the next day you had a Red Delicious, it would count as 2 different foods. But if you had 2 Granny Smith, that just counts as 1 food, right? So you tabulate how many unique foods can I get within 7 days? And the aim is 50. Well, in the community that I have on Facebook, it's a closed group, it's called Nourish Your Whole Self. There were people that had like 230 unique foods. I mean, it's not impossible
Wow.
if you're really aware of the foods that you're bringing in and you're counting these plant foods. And I let them count spices. We counted fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds. If they were doing any kind of grain, they could include that too. So any plant-based foods. And of course, I mean, I'm not against people eating meat, but when I think of phytonutrient, phyto means plant, so we've got to stick to the phytonutrient, what we're talking about with color.
Wow. And again, I wholeheartedly agree with you on diversity of the microbiome. The literature really backs that up. It's so funny. You and I have been talking about that for years, and I have patients now coming in saying, hey, that gut thing, it seems to be correct. And I'm like, hallelujah. We're going to now have a kumbaya. How can these people get more phytonutrients? What foods would you recommend? Which colors would you recommend to give the phytonutrients?
I would say first know where your starting place is. Like, for example, my sister told me, she's like, oh, I'm eating red. And when I asked her what she was eating, she's like, well, I'm eating tomatoes, which is okay. But if you're only eating tomatoes as your only red, that's a limiting factor for you. So tomatoes contain a lot of phytonutrients. Primarily, we think of lycopene, which is a carotenoid, which is really good for helping with inflammation, cardiovascular health, prostate health, a number of things. But what about raspberries? What about cranberries? There's a whole spectrum within each of the colors. And so when you ask me, hey, Deanna, what are the foods? Well, there are so many. I recently put together a blog with the help of some folks, and what we looked at was which foods contain the most amount of colors, like underneath. So even though you see a plant food, let's just take spinach. Well, spinach is green and we see it as green, but underneath the green, there's also some orange, there's also some yellow. So you're actually getting more than just one color. So we put together a chart. I call it color density. It's a color density table, and you could see all the different foods. And this is a blog on my website, which is deannaminich.com. You just go on the table, look at the table, and then you can see how many of these foods contain multiple types of phytonutrients. So when you say, hey, Deanna, which ones are the ones? Well, I would say if you really want to maximize your nutrient density, get the ones that contain multiple colors, because then you're getting more diversity. And believe it or not, tomatoes happens to be on that list of containing multiple pigments. Unfortunately, I have a short list of foods that I can't eat for various reasons, and tomatoes happens to, for some people who can't do nightshades, that's not going to work. But there are other foods that contain lycopene, like watermelon and guava and pink grapefruit. Like I do a grapefruit every now and then in order to ensure that I'm getting lycopene, or sometimes I'll bring in a supplement too.
Outstanding. Outstanding. So I have to change my diet around and go for colors. They said I was a colorful guy.
You are a
So,
colorful guy. I'd be curious
yeah.
what you're eating on a daily basis. I often say that if you eat colors, you live a colorful life.
There you go. Give me again, I know because you made a great point. It's all about individualization, personalization, the collaboration. So for me to ask you a standard breakfast, you're going to look at me and like, I can't do it. So for me, I want to get it. I want to stay in shape. I want to stay healthy. From what you know about me, what would be a good breakfast for me?
Oh, goodness. Well, it depends on the season. It depends what you're after that day. I'll tell you what I did in Whole Detox. So in
Okay.
Whole Detox, I give people a program, and then you can use this as a template. So this is for most people what I think is a good way to start. And it's based also on ancient eating principles. So eating more at noontime when your metabolic fire is burning bright, and less for dinner, right? So we start off the day with a smoothie. And so the first 3 days we do the color red, because people get into smoothie ruts too. And one of the things with smoothies is that we need to chew our smoothies. Why? Not just for digestion, but because we have so much bacteria in our mouth, and the bacteria interact with the different phytonutrients to liberate or cause some reactions very early on that can be favorable. And also, one of the things I learned from one of my colleagues, Dr. Mary Ellen Chalmers, who's a dentist, she teaches with me as part of the IFM detox module. She talks about how chewing, having that actual occlusion, stimulates the brain. So underneath every tooth, we have root fibers that can spark the brain and stimulate that. So I get concerned when people are moving to too many liquid foods, because I don't think that we're engaging. I mean, this is part of the digestive system, the mouth. And if we're just slugging things down, how does that change satiety? How does that change hunger and the brain response, the cephalic response to food, the smell? I feel like one smoothie a day to kind of bring in a number of things, but then let's be aware with how we're taking that in. So if you want to create a smoothie bowl, that's also good. So for the first 3 days, we focus on red. Then we move from days 4 through 6. We get into orange smoothies. So that's kind of for breakfast. But I always put protein. My mantra is protein plus plants, plus oils, actually. So it's not like these are just fruity, sugary smoothies. These are actually quite substantive, with a protein base to blunt any glycemic impact, and also with various fats and oils to help with satiety. So that's first and foremost, is perhaps a smoothie. And even my dad, who's a junk food guy in Chicago, 39 years as a police officer, he just has such poor eating habits, poor. And to undo his whole life after 70 some odd years is really difficult. But you know what he said to me? He said, Dee, I can do a smoothie. I can do a smoothie, and when my mom makes it up, it's a pretty complex one. Like she's tossing in probiotics and fish oil, and, she's putting in lots of things. And for the average person, I think that that's one way to maximize color and nutrient density. So starting with the smoothie, I think, is one good place to start. For lunch, having something more raw and fresh, like a salad with some kind of protein and fat. And then for dinner, having something that's more cooked, because now our digestive fire is not as resilient and active, and we're going to be going to bed soon, so we need a little bit of help. This is more based, if you look at traditional Chinese medicine or even Ayurvedic medicine, you can see that they honor the body's rhythm with digestion. And everybody has their own flow, but in general, we're circadian oriented individuals. And so going with the sun, eating when the sun is high in the sky a bit more versus when it's low in the sky. So in fact, there was a really neat study. I need to send this to you. It was an animal study, but they showed that when the animals were subject to short day or long day, just through the light cycle, and then fed two different kinds of diet. One was their standard diet and one was a more obesogenic diet. When they had cherries, so they put cherry powder into their food, that on top of an obesogenic diet and a short day cycle, it actually led to greater manifestations towards an obesogenic phenotype. All of which to say is, whenever we can eat food in season, it's probably better because nature's probably giving us what we need. So yeah, there'd be a lot of things that would go into my dietary prescription for you, but I kind of go with this template like I've established in Whole Detox, and from there we can modify.
I'm getting hungry. I want a good shake.
I
I'm going to get my Vitamix out, my protein, my plants plus oils. I'm not going to forget that. I'm going to email you later and let you know how it tastes.
Good. One of my favorites is actually chocolate, a chocolate shake. And but let me tell you what I mean by a chocolate shake. And this comes from my friend, Dr. Mark Menelaskino, who has a practice in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And he, at his office, he has a kitchen, and he'll say to his patients, "Can you do a milkshake for breakfast?" And they're like, "Oh, really? A milkshake? Sure." And then he walks them into the kitchen and he starts putting in, the chocolate protein powder and all the different things. One of my favorites is to take a banana. I do have a chocolate. It's actually raw cacao powder, so no sugar at all. I put in some maca. I like maca. I put in cacao nibs. I put in fish oil. And especially if you have fresh fish oil, it's tasteless. So then you get your oils. Sometimes I'll put in a little bit of coconut. But I love all those flavonoids from cocoa. So I know I don't typically talk about brown on this scale in a beneficial way, but there are some good brown, white, and even yellow foods, of course.
That sounds great. So you're a little lower on the glycemic index, I noticed. A little lower.
Well, but if we have I have a protein powder that's in there, and the fat helps with that too.
Great. That sounds yummy. Next time I see you out yonder, it's on you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, there are so many places in New York, too, to get those good smoothies.
Absolutely. And when you come to New York, it is on me without question. I have just the perfect places to take you. And you can do like what my wife does. We just walk around and try a small smoothie in 3 or 4 different places.
Oh, how fun. That'd be great.
Absolutely. This has been great. I learned a lot. I know all my listeners learned a lot. How can they get in touch with you?
Well, I have a website, which is deannaminich.com. I also, like you, have a Facebook page, Deanna Minich, PhD, and I do a lot on Instagram, too. I've been lately getting more into Instagram. It's just a different experience. But so if you just go to my main website, deannaminich.com, it'll portal you into my certification program, all the courses I teach online, the whole detox program, lots of free downloads. So I would say the website is everything in that way.
And they can get the sheet. We're going to put up, you have a PowerPoint, so we'll put up a PowerPoint and all your info so they can get that, because I know everybody's going to want that now.
Yeah, I know.
And your book, and you gave me your 3 takeaways, so I don't have to ask you at the end.
No, I did give you, so I'll just rehash them for you. Color, creativity, and variety. And I would say not just with food, but with life. One of the ways that we keep our brain young is by constantly having diverse experiences, having variety, being open-minded. And the brain, the heart, and the gut, the more that we can sync those things together through color, creativity, and variety, the healthier we are. So, yeah. So thank you for having me. It's always a delight talking with you. You are a very colorful person in many ways. I'd like to just vision into what you eat on a daily basis, because the science does show that people that eat colorfully actually are in a better mood, and you're always in a good mood every time I talk with you.
I'm always in a good mood. Life is grand, and it's better now that I got to talk with you and share some great information with all my followers. We have to do this again. Dr. Rob, Deanna Minich, Proven Health Alternatives. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.